My mother kicked out my 8-year-old daughter because she refused to do heavy chores while my sister's kids made fun of her and called her names. Mom screamed, "Lazy children don't deserve shelter." My daughter left and was nowhere to be found for hours. My sister finally called me saying, "Is your daughter with you? I haven't seen her all day." I screamed, "I'm at work, what do you mean she's missing?" So I called the police and filed an emergency missing person report. When they found her and called me, and when I saw her, I froze. I never thought I'd be writing this story, but here I am, 18 months later, finally ready to share what happened to my family and how everything changed in a single day. This is a story about betrayal, negligence, and ultimately, justice served cold. My name is Megan, and I'm a 34-year-old single mother to the most amazing little girl in the world, Olivia. Olivia is now 10, but when this story takes place, she had just turned 8. Her father walked out when she was 2, leaving us to fend for ourselves. It's been tough, but we've managed to build a good life together. 2 years ago, I was working as a nurse at the local hospital, pulling long shifts to make ends meet. The hours were brutal, especially the 12-hour shifts that sometimes stretched to 14 hours when we were understaffed. I hated leaving Olivia for so long, but I didn't have much choice. Childcare was expensive, and my mother, Catherine, had offered to help by watching Olivia during my shifts. At the time, my mother lived in a large house that she'd inherited from my grandmother. It was a 4-bedroom colonial with a big backyard, perfect for kids to play in. My sister Hannah also lived there with her 2 children, Tyler, 9, and Madison, 7. Hannah had gotten divorced the year before and kept her married name, Martinez, when she moved back in with Mom to save money. On paper, it seemed like the perfect arrangement. Olivia would have cousins to play with, and Mom would have helped with all the kids. What I didn't realize was that this arrangement would turn into a nightmare for my daughter. The problems started slowly. Olivia would come home from Mom's house quieter than usual. When I asked her about her day, she'd just shrug and say it was okay. I figured she was just tired from playing with her cousins. But as weeks turned into months, I noticed other changes. Olivia started having nightmares, and she'd cling to me whenever I mentioned going to Grandma's house. "Mommy, do I have to go to Grandma's tomorrow?" she'd ask with this look of dread in her eyes. "Sweetheart, you know Mommy has to work," I'd explain. "But you get to play with Tyler and Madison." Olivia would just nod and go quiet. I should have pressed harder, should have asked more questions. But I was exhausted, working double shifts just to keep us afloat, and I trusted my mother and sister to take care of Olivia. The truth started coming out in bits and pieces. Olivia mentioned that Grandma made her do big kid chores while Tyler and Madison got to play. When I asked what kind of chores, Olivia said things like vacuuming the entire house, doing dishes, and cleaning bathrooms. I thought maybe Mom was just trying to teach Olivia responsibility, even though 8 seemed young for such heavy chores. Then Olivia started mentioning that Tyler and Madison called her names. "They say I'm stupid and ugly," she whispered one night as I tucked her into bed. "Tyler said I'm not really part of the family because my daddy left." My blood boiled. I called Hannah the next morning, but she brushed it off. "Kids will be kids, Megan. They're just playing around. Olivia needs to toughen up." "Playing around?" I snapped. "They're bullying her." "You're being dramatic," Hannah said. Maybe if Olivia wasn't so sensitive, she'd fit in better. I should have pulled Olivia out of that house right then and there. I should have found another solution, even if it meant going into debt for childcare. But I didn't. I was tired, stressed, and convinced that things would get better. I had no idea how much worse they were about to get. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March. I had picked up an extra shift at the hospital because one of our nurses had called in sick. It meant I'd be working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but the overtime pay would help cover Olivia's upcoming birthday party. I dropped Olivia off at Mom's house at 6:30 a.m., giving her an extra long hug. "Be good for Grandma," I said, kissing her forehead. "I will, Mommy," Olivia replied, but she looked scared. I spent the entire day running between patients, dealing with emergencies, and trying to keep up with the constant demands of the hospital. Around 3 p.m., I got a brief text from Mom, "Olivia is fine. Don't worry about calling." I thought it was sweet that she was being considerate of my busy schedule. At 6 p.m., during my dinner break, I tried calling to check on Olivia, but no one answered. I figured they were probably having dinner or the kids were playing outside. I sent a text, "How's Olivia doing? Hope she's being good." No response. By 6 p.m., I was starting to worry. I called again, and this time Hannah answered. "Hey, Megan," she said, and something in her voice made my stomach drop. "Hi, Jess. How's Olivia? Can I talk to her?" There was a pause. "Actually, I was just about to call you. Is Olivia with you?" "What do you mean, is she with me? I'm at work. I dropped her off at Mom's this morning." "Well, she's not here. I haven't seen her all day, actually. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. Other nurses in the break room looked up, concerned. I scrambled to pick up the phone. What do you mean you haven't seen her all day? Where is she? Put Mom on the phone. Mom's not here. She went to her book club around 7. Megan, when did you last talk to Olivia? I haven't talked to her since I dropped her off this morning. Hannah, where is my daughter? I don't know. I thought she was with Mom all day, but when I got home from work, Mom was getting ready to leave and said Olivia had left hours ago. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Left? What do you mean left? She's 8 years old. Look, I'm sure she's fine. Maybe she went to a friend's house or... I'm calling the police, I said, hanging up before Hannah could say another word. I rushed to my supervisor and explained the situation. She immediately approved me to leave, and I raced home while simultaneously calling 911. The dispatcher was calm and professional, asking for Olivia's description, what she was wearing, and when she was last seen. I need to file an emergency missing person report, I said, my voice cracking. My 8-year-old daughter is missing. By the time I got to the police station, I was barely holding it together. Detective Harper, a kind woman with graying hair and gentle eyes, took my statement. I gave them a recent photo of Olivia, described her clothes, and provided all the details I could remember about dropping her off that morning. We're going to find her, Detective Harper assured me. We're putting out an Amber Alert and mobilizing search teams. Can you think of anywhere Olivia might go? Any friends, relatives, favorite places? I racked my brain. Olivia was shy and didn't have many friends yet. We'd only moved to this town a year ago for my job at the hospital. She knew our neighborhood, but where would an 8-year-old go when she was scared and alone? The next few hours were the longest of my life. I sat in my car outside Mom's house, waiting for any news. Police cars had been coming and going, and I could see officers questioning Mom and Hannah. Neighbors had joined the search, walking through the local park and calling Olivia's name. At 9:47 p.m., my phone rang. Detective Harper's voice was gentle but serious. Megan, we found Olivia. She's safe, but she's at the hospital. We need you to come right away. The hospital? Is she hurt? What happened? Just come quickly. We'll explain everything when you get here. I broke every speed limit getting to the hospital. When I arrived, Detective Harper was waiting for me with a social worker named Ms. Ramirez. They led me to a private room in the pediatric ward. Before you see Olivia, we need to prepare you, Detective Harper said. She's physically okay, but she's been through a traumatic experience. She was found hiding in an abandoned shed about 2 miles from your mother's house. She's been there since around 10 a.m. 10 a.m.? That's 11 hours ago. Megan, Ms. Ramirez said gently, Olivia has told us some very concerning things about what happened at your mother's house today. We need to discuss this before you see her. They led me to a small conference room and closed the door. What they told me next made my blood run cold. According to Olivia's statement, that morning had started like any other. Mom had made breakfast for Tyler and Madison but told Olivia she had to wait until after she finished her morning chores. These chores included scrubbing the kitchen floor on her hands and knees, cleaning all 3 bathrooms, and doing 2 loads of laundry. While Olivia was working, Tyler and Madison were playing video games and watching TV. They started teasing her, calling her Cinderella and the maid. When Olivia asked if she could have some breakfast, Tyler told her that servants eat after everyone else. Madison, apparently following her brother's lead, started calling Olivia garbage girl and said she smelled bad. When Olivia started crying, Tyler told her to stop being a baby and that maybe her daddy left because she was too annoying. Olivia had gone to find Mom, who was in the living room reading. She told Mom that Tyler and Madison were being mean and asked if she could please eat breakfast. According to Olivia, Mom got angry and said Olivia was causing trouble and needed to stop being dramatic. Your cousins are just playing, Mom had allegedly said. Maybe if you finished your chores faster, you'd have time to play too. But the situation escalated when Olivia refused to clean the garage. Mom had apparently given her a list of tasks that included organizing all the tools, sweeping the floor, and moving heavy boxes. Olivia, exhausted and hungry, said she couldn't lift the boxes. That's when Mom exploded. Lazy children don't deserve shelter. Mom had screamed, according to Olivia's account. If you can't pull your weight, then you can find somewhere else to live. Mom had then grabbed Olivia by the arm, dragged her to the front door, and literally pushed her outside, locking the door behind her. Tyler and Madison had watched from the window, laughing and making faces at Olivia as she stood on the porch, crying. Olivia had knocked on the door, begging to be let back in, but Mom had yelled through the door that she could come back when she was ready to be useful. Olivia waited on the porch for over an hour, but no one came to let her in. Scared, hungry, and alone, Olivia had wandered away from the house. She remembered seeing an old shed behind some trees during previous walks in the neighborhood, and that's where she'd hidden. She'd been there for 11 hours, scared to come out, scared to go back to Mom's house, and not knowing how to reach me at work. As Detective Harper and Ms. Ramirez told me this story, I felt like I was going to be sick. My innocent, sweet little girl had been treated like a servant, emotionally abused, and then literally thrown out of the house by my own mother. The woman I had trusted to care for Olivia had traumatized her in the worst possible way. "Can I see her now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. They led me to Olivia's room. When I walked in and saw her lying in that hospital bed, looking so small and fragile, I froze. She was wearing a hospital gown, and her clothes were in a bag nearby, dirty and torn from her day hiding in the shed. Her face was streaked with dried tears, and she had scratches on her arms from squeezing into the small shed. But it was her eyes that broke my heart. They were empty, hollow, like something inside her had died. When she saw me, she didn't run into my arms like she usually did. She just looked at me with this expression of pure defeat. "Mommy?" she whispered. "I'm sorry I was bad. I lost it." I rushed to her bedside and gathered her in my arms, holding her as tightly as I dared. "You weren't bad, baby. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Mommy is so sorry." Olivia clung to me and started sobbing. "Grandma said I was lazy. Tyler said Daddy left because I'm annoying. I tried to be good, Mommy. I tried so hard." "You are good, Olivia. You are perfect. This is not your fault." We held each other and cried until we were both exhausted. The doctor came in to check on Olivia and confirmed she was dehydrated and had some minor cuts and bruises, but was otherwise physically okay. The psychological trauma, however, was a different story. Ms. Ramirez explained that Child Protective Services would need to investigate the incident. While they didn't suspect me of any wrongdoing, they needed to ensure Olivia's safety and document what had happened. I assured them I would cooperate fully and that Olivia would never be going back to my mother's house. We went home around 1 a.m. Olivia didn't want to sleep in her own bed, so I let her curl up next to me. She kept waking up throughout the night, calling for me to make sure I was still there. The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day just holding Olivia and trying to process what had happened. I also started making phone calls. The first was to a family lawyer, David Kim, who came highly recommended. The second was to a child psychologist, Dr. Jennifer Williams, who specialized in trauma. But I wasn't done. I was furious, and I wanted answers. I called my mother. "Catherine," I said when she answered, not bothering with pleasantries. "Megan, thank goodness. I've been worried sick. Is Olivia okay?" The police said, "Don't you dare pretend to be worried about Olivia. You threw her out of your house. You abandoned an 8-year-old child." "Now wait just a minute," Mom said, her voice getting defensive. Olivia was being defiant and disrespectful. I was trying to teach her discipline. "Discipline? You made her scrub floors and clean bathrooms while Tyler and Madison played. You let them torment her. And then you literally threw her out of the house." "I didn't throw her out. I told her she could come back when she was ready to behave. She's 8 years old. She could have been kidnapped, hit by a car, or worse. She spent 13 hours hiding in a shed because she was too scared to come home." "You're being dramatic, Megan. Kids are more resilient than you think." That's when I realized that my mother felt absolutely no remorse for what she'd done. In her mind, she was justified. Olivia was just being difficult, and Mom had been teaching her a lesson. "You're right, Mom. Kids are resilient. And Olivia is going to be just fine, because she's never going to see you again." I hung up before she could respond. Over the next few weeks, Olivia started therapy with Dr. Williams. It was heartbreaking to watch my confident, bubbly little girl struggle with anxiety and fear. She was afraid to be alone, afraid that I wouldn't come back from work, and afraid that she was bad and deserved to be abandoned. Dr. Williams explained that Olivia was experiencing symptoms of trauma and that it would take time and patience to help her heal. She also recommended that Olivia have no contact with Mom, Hannah, Tyler, or Madison while she worked through her feelings. Meanwhile, the legal wheels were turning. David Kim, my lawyer, explained that while what my mother did was morally reprehensible, proving criminal charges would be difficult. However, he believed we had a strong case for a civil lawsuit based on negligence, emotional distress, and child endangerment. The CPS investigation was thorough. They interviewed Olivia multiple times, using child-friendly techniques to get her story. They also interviewed Mom, Hannah, Tyler, and Madison. The investigator, Mrs. Rodriguez, was professional but clearly disturbed by what she found. "Your mother's account of events doesn't match Olivia's or even your sister's," Mrs. Rodriguez told me during one of our meetings. Your mother claims Olivia was just being asked to do age-appropriate chores, but the list of tasks we found suggests otherwise. An 8-year-old should not be expected to clean multiple bathrooms, do laundry, or move heavy objects. She also found evidence that this treatment had been going on for months, not just that one day. Tyler and Madison, when interviewed separately, admitted that Olivia was always given more chores than them and that they were encouraged to tease her about her father leaving. Your sister claims she wasn't aware of the extent of the problem, Mrs. Rodriguez continued, but she admits she heard your mother yelling at Olivia and saw her doing chores while her own children played. She says she thought it was character building. The final CPS report was damning. While they didn't remove Tyler and Madison from the home, they mandated that Mom and Hannah attend parenting classes and anger management. They also issued a protection order stating that Mom was not allowed to have unsupervised contact with Olivia. The CPS report also revealed additional disturbing details that hadn't come to light during the initial investigation. Mrs. Rodriguez had interviewed Olivia's previous babysitter, Mrs. Garcia, who had watched Olivia occasionally before we started the arrangement with Mom. Mrs. Garcia reported that Olivia had mentioned being tired from cleaning and that she'd asked if it was normal for kids to do grown-up work. I thought maybe she was just helping with simple chores, Mrs. Garcia told the investigator. But now I realize she was trying to tell me something was wrong. I should have asked more questions. The report also included statements from Olivia's teacher, Ms. Johnson, who had noticed changes in Olivia's behavior and academic performance over the past several months. Olivia had become withdrawn, frequently fell asleep in class, and her grades had dropped from A's to C's and D's. Olivia used to be one of my most engaged students, Ms. Johnson had told CPS. Around November, she started seeming exhausted and distracted. When I asked if everything was okay at home, she would just nod and change the subject. I noticed she was often hungry and would ask for extra snacks during our class parties. This detail hit me like a punch to the gut. My daughter had been starving while I thought she was being fed and cared for. The wait until after chores rule apparently meant Olivia often went without breakfast and sometimes lunch, depending on how long her assigned tasks took. The investigation also revealed that Mom had been telling other family members a completely different story about Olivia's visits. She'd been portraying Olivia as spoiled, demanding, and disrespectful, laying the groundwork to justify her treatment. Several relatives had started avoiding Olivia at family gatherings because they believed Mom's lies. My cousin Rachel called me after the CPS report became known in the family. "Megan, I owe you and Olivia a huge apology," she said, crying. "Mom told everyone that Olivia was acting out and being disrespectful. She said you were raising her without discipline and that Olivia was rude to Tyler and Madison. I actually avoided talking to Olivia at Christmas because I thought she was a problem child." "She told you Olivia was the problem?" I asked, incredulous. "She said Olivia was jealous of Tyler and Madison and that she was trying to get them in trouble by lying about being picked on. She made it sound like Olivia was the bully, not the victim. I feel sick knowing I believed her." Rachel wasn't the only one. Mom had systematically poisoned our extended family against Olivia for months, ensuring that if Olivia ever tried to reach out for help, she would be dismissed as a troublemaker. It was a level of manipulation that was almost sociopathic. The psychological evaluation that was part of the CPS investigation was equally revealing. Dr. Patricia Stevens, a forensic psychologist, had evaluated both Olivia and the family dynamic. Her report stated that Olivia showed clear signs of complex trauma, including hypervigilance, emotional dysregulation, and symptoms consistent with ongoing psychological abuse. But Dr. Stevens' evaluation of Mom was what really opened my eyes. "Mrs. Catherine Thompson exhibits traits consistent with narcissistic personality disorder," the report stated. "She shows a pattern of grandiose self-perception, lack of empathy, and a tendency to exploit relationships for personal gain. Her treatment of Olivia appears to be motivated by a need to maintain control and dominance rather than any genuine concern for discipline or character building." The evaluation noted that Mom showed no genuine remorse for her actions and consistently deflected responsibility. When asked about Olivia's emotional state, Mrs. Thompson's primary concern was how the situation reflected on her reputation rather than the child's well-being, Dr. Stevens wrote. Hannah's evaluation was somewhat different but equally disturbing. Ms. Hannah Martinez demonstrates enabler behaviors and appears to have sacrificed her niece's well-being to maintain her own comfortable living situation, the report stated. She admits to witnessing inappropriate treatment but rationalized it as not her place to interfere with her mother's parenting decisions. Dr. Stevens noted that Hannah's primary motivation seemed to be ensuring her own children weren't subjected to the same treatment. Ms. Martinez appears to have made a conscious decision to allow Olivia to bear the burden of excessive household responsibilities to protect her own children from similar expectations. But I wanted more than just a slap on the wrist. I wanted them to understand the full consequences of their actions. During this period, I also learned more about what Olivia had endured through her therapy sessions. Dr. Williams used play therapy and art therapy to help Olivia express feelings she couldn't put into words. The pictures Olivia drew during these sessions were heartbreaking. One drawing showed a stick figure of a little girl scrubbing a floor while two other children played video games in the background. Another showed the same little girl standing outside a house with tears streaming down her face while faces in the windows pointed and laughed. But the most devastating drawing was one Olivia titled The Shed. It showed a tiny figure curled up in a dark space, with scary shadows all around. When Dr. Williams asked Olivia to tell her about the picture, Olivia said, "This is where I went when nobody wanted me anymore." "How did you feel in the shed?" Dr. Williams had asked gently. "Scared and hungry," Olivia replied. "But also invisible. Nobody could see me to be mad at me." Dr. Williams explained to me that Olivia had internalized the abuse to such a degree that she believed she deserved it. Olivia has developed a trauma response where she tries to make herself invisible to avoid conflict, she said. She's learned that her needs and feelings don't matter, which is incredibly damaging for a child's development. The therapy sessions also revealed that Olivia had been having dissociative episodes during the worst abuse. "Sometimes when Grandma yelled really loud, I would pretend I was somewhere else," Olivia told Dr. Williams. "I would think about being at the park with Mommy, and then I couldn't hear the mean words anymore." Learning about these coping mechanisms broke my heart all over again. My 8-year-old daughter had developed psychological defense mechanisms typically seen in adults with severe trauma histories. Around this time, I also started receiving pressure from other family members to let it go and move on for the sake of family unity. My Uncle Tom called me one evening with what he clearly thought was sage advice. "Megan, I know Catherine made mistakes, but she's getting older and she's set in her ways," he said. "Maybe it's time to forgive and forget. Olivia seems fine now." "Uncle Tom, would you forgive and forget if someone threw your great-niece out of their house and left her to hide in a shed for 11 hours? I asked, referring to Hannah's daughter Madison. "Well, that's different." "No, it's not different. It's exactly the same. Olivia is just as deserving of protection and love as Madison. The fact that Mom is old doesn't excuse child abuse. But think about the family, Megan. This lawsuit is tearing everyone apart. The family was torn apart the moment Mom decided to abuse my daughter. I'm just making sure there are consequences for that choice." These conversations made me realize how deeply ingrained the family's dysfunction was. They were more concerned about maintaining the appearance of family harmony than actually protecting children. It reinforced my decision to keep Olivia away from all of them. Meanwhile, Olivia's healing process was ongoing and complicated. Some days she seemed like her old self, laughing and playing without a care in the world. Other days, she would regress and become clingy and fearful. The trauma had fundamentally changed her, and I had to learn to parent a child who had been through something I couldn't fully understand. One particularly difficult evening, Olivia had a complete meltdown when I asked her to clean her room. She started hyperventilating and crying, saying she was sorry for being lazy and that she would do better. "I'll clean the whole house, Mommy," she sobbed. "Please don't make me leave. I'll be good, I promise." It took me 20 minutes to calm her down and help her understand that normal childhood chores were different from what she'd experienced at Mom's house. Dr. Williams had warned me that everyday situations might trigger Olivia's trauma response, but seeing it happen was devastating. I also had to deal with my own feelings of guilt and rage. There were nights when I couldn't sleep, replaying every conversation with Mom, looking for signs I had missed. I started seeing a therapist myself, Dr. Michael Chen, to help process my own trauma from the situation. "You're experiencing secondary trauma," Dr. Chen explained. "When someone you love is severely hurt, especially your child, it creates its own trauma response. You're not just dealing with Olivia's healing, you're dealing with your own feelings of helplessness and betrayal." Dr. Chen helped me understand that my anger was not only normal but necessary. "Your rage is protective," he said. "It's your mind's way of ensuring this never happens again. The key is channeling that anger into positive action rather than letting it consume you." The legal process was also taking its toll. Depositions were scheduled, and I had to relive the entire nightmare, while lawyers asked detailed questions about every aspect of Olivia's abuse. Mom's lawyer was particularly aggressive, trying to paint me as an overprotective mother who was exaggerating Olivia's trauma for financial gain. "Isn't it true, Ms. Williams, that children often exaggerate when they're seeking attention?" Mom's lawyer asked during my deposition. "Olivia wasn't seeking attention," I replied firmly. "She was seeking safety. And instead of finding it with her grandmother, she found abuse." "But don't you think filing this lawsuit is teaching Olivia that she should blame others for her problems instead of taking responsibility?" David Kim objected before I could answer, but the question revealed the defense strategy. They were going to argue that holding Mom accountable was somehow harmful to Olivia's character development. During Mom's deposition, her true colors really showed. When asked about the day she kicked Olivia out, she showed no remorse whatsoever. Olivia was being defiant and disrespectful, she stated. I told her that lazy children don't deserve shelter because I was trying to motivate her to work harder. You told an 8-year-old that she didn't deserve shelter? David Kim asked. I was teaching her that actions have consequences. What consequence did you expect an 8-year-old to learn from being abandoned outside your home? I expected her to come back ready to behave properly. For 13 hours? I didn't know it would be 13 hours. I assumed Megan would come get her when she got off work. This response was particularly damning because it showed Mom had never intended to let Olivia back in. She had expected me to leave work early to collect my misbehaving daughter, which would have resulted in me losing pay and possibly my job. Hannah's deposition was equally revealing but in a different way. Unlike Mom, Hannah seemed to understand that what had happened was wrong, but her explanations made it clear that she had been complicit from the beginning. I knew Olivia was doing more chores than Tyler and Madison, she admitted. But Mom said it was because Olivia needed more discipline than my kids. Did you ever question why Olivia needed more discipline? Mom said Megan was raising Olivia without proper boundaries and that Olivia was spoiled. Did you ever consider that an 8-year-old doing multiple loads of laundry, scrubbing floors, and cleaning bathrooms might be excessive? Hannah was quiet for a long moment. I thought about it sometimes, but Mom said it would be good for Olivia's character. And honestly, it meant Tyler and Madison had more time for homework and activities. This admission that Hannah had allowed Olivia to be overburdened so her own children could have easier lives was particularly galling. She had sacrificed her niece's well-being for her own children's convenience. David Kim filed a civil lawsuit against both my mother and Hannah for negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and child endangerment. The lawsuit sought damages for Olivia's medical expenses, therapy costs, and pain and suffering. The legal discovery process was eye-opening. We found out that Hannah had been aware of the unequal treatment for months but had actively encouraged it because it meant her own children had fewer responsibilities. Text messages between Mom and Hannah revealed their true feelings about Olivia. That girl is too spoiled, one text from Mom read. Megan coddles her. Someone needs to teach her what real work looks like. Hannah's response, maybe some hard work will make her less whiny. Tyler and Madison think she's a crybaby. Another exchange showed Hannah actually complaining that Olivia wasn't doing enough work. Mom, you're still too easy on Olivia. She should be doing Tyler's laundry too. He's older and has more important things to do. Reading these texts made me physically ill. My own family had conspired to abuse my daughter, and they felt completely justified in doing so. The lawsuit took 8 months to resolve. During that time, Olivia continued therapy and slowly started to heal. She was still anxious and struggled with self-worth, but she was making progress. Dr. Williams said that Olivia's resilience was remarkable, but that the trauma would likely have lasting effects. Mom and Hannah tried to contact me multiple times during this period. They sent letters, showed up at my house, and even had other family members try to mediate. Their message was always the same: I was overreacting, Olivia was fine, and I was destroying the family over nothing. The breaking point came when Mom showed up at Olivia's school, trying to see her. Olivia had a panic attack when she saw her grandmother in the hallway. The school called me immediately, and I had to leave work to pick up Olivia, who was hyperventilating and crying. That's when I filed for a restraining order. The hearing for the restraining order was brutal. Mom's lawyer painted her as a loving grandmother who was just trying to discipline a difficult child. They argued that Olivia's reaction was proof that I had been poisoning her against her grandmother. But David Kim was prepared. He presented Olivia's therapy records, with Dr. Williams' permission, the CPS report, and the text messages between Mom and Hannah. He also had Dr. Williams testify about Olivia's trauma and the long-term effects of emotional abuse. The judge was not impressed with Mom's defense. Mrs. Thompson, he said, addressing my mother, your actions on the day in question were not discipline. They were abandonment. You ejected an 8-year-old child from your home and left her to fend for herself for over 12 hours. That is not grandmotherly concern, that is child endangerment. The restraining order was granted, prohibiting Mom from coming within 500 feet of Olivia or me for 2 years. The civil lawsuit concluded 6 months later. The evidence was overwhelming, and Mom's lawyers recommended settling out of court. The final settlement was for $85,000, which would go toward Olivia's therapy, future counseling, and a college fund. But the money wasn't really the point. The point was accountability. During the settlement negotiations, Mom was required to write a letter acknowledging her actions and their impact on Olivia. The letter was part of the legal agreement, which meant if she ever tried to claim she did nothing wrong, we could use it against her. The letter read, in part, I acknowledge that my treatment of Olivia on March 15th and in the months leading up to that date was inappropriate and harmful. I understand that requiring an 8-year-old to perform excessive household chores while other children played was unfair. I acknowledge that removing Olivia from my home and refusing to let her back in was dangerous and traumatic. I understand that my actions caused Olivia significant emotional distress and contributed to ongoing psychological trauma. Reading that letter gave me more satisfaction than the money ever could. Hannah's part of the settlement was smaller, but she was also required to acknowledge her role in enabling Mom's behavior and failing to protect Olivia. The most satisfying part of the entire process came 6 months after the settlement, when I learned that Mom's actions had consequences beyond our lawsuit. It turned out that several neighbors had witnessed Olivia being kicked out of the house that day. One neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, had actually called the police when she saw an 8-year-old walking alone and crying. Her call helped establish the timeline of events and proved that Olivia had indeed been forced to leave the house. Word of the lawsuit and its outcome spread through Mom's social circle. Her book club kicked her out when they learned what had happened. Several longtime friends stopped speaking to her. Even her own sister, my Aunt Carol, cut off contact after reading the CPS report. Hannah faced consequences at work as well. She was a teacher's aide at the local elementary school, and when the school district learned about her role in Olivia's abuse, they conducted their own investigation. While she wasn't fired, she was transferred to a different school and required to complete additional training on child welfare and reporting. But the most significant consequence was the effect on Tyler and Madison. The other parents at their school learned about the situation, and several families stopped allowing their children to play with Tyler and Madison. The kids started acting out at school, and Hannah was forced to put them in counseling as well. Tyler, in particular, struggled with guilt over his treatment of Olivia. During one of the CPS interviews, he broke down and admitted that he knew what he was doing was wrong, but that Mom and Hannah had told him Olivia deserved it because she was spoiled. The family counselor working with Tyler and Madison told Hannah that the children had been damaged by being encouraged to participate in Olivia's abuse. They had learned that bullying and cruelty were acceptable, and now they were struggling with relationships and empathy. Hannah called me one evening, about a year after the settlement, crying hysterically. "Megan, Tyler is having nightmares about Olivia," she sobbed. "He keeps asking if she's okay and saying he's sorry. Madison won't talk about it at all, but her teacher says she's become aggressive with other kids. The counselor says they're traumatized by what they were taught to do." "I'm sorry, Hannah, but I can't help you with that," I said. "You made your choices. Please, can Olivia just talk to Tyler? Just once? He needs to apologize to her." "Absolutely not. Olivia is still in therapy dealing with the trauma your son helped inflict. I will not expose her to any of you again." "But we're family." "No, we're not. Family doesn't abuse children. Family doesn't abandon 8-year-olds. You stopped being family the day you chose to enable Mom's behavior instead of protecting Olivia." I hung up and blocked her number. Olivia is now 10 years old and doing much better. She's still in therapy, but less frequently. She's made friends at school and joined the soccer team. She's regained her confidence and her smile, though she still has occasional nightmares and anxiety. She asks about her grandmother and cousins sometimes, but Dr. Williams has helped her understand that some people make bad choices and that it's okay to stay away from people who hurt us, even if they're family. The college fund from the settlement has grown significantly, and Olivia will have plenty of money for her education when the time comes. More importantly, she's learned that her voice matters, that adults should protect children, and that she deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. As for Mama and Hannah, I hear updates occasionally through mutual acquaintances. Mom's health has declined, and she's become increasingly isolated. Hannah struggles as a single mother with 2 troubled children and no support system. Part of me feels sorry for them, but mostly I feel relief that Olivia is safe and thriving. They had a choice to make on that day in March, and they chose cruelty over compassion, convenience over protection. They chose to sacrifice Olivia's well-being for their own twisted sense of justice. The last time someone suggested I should forgive and forget for the sake of family unity, I told them exactly what I thought. Family doesn't end with blood, and it doesn't start there either. Real family protects each other, especially the most vulnerable members. My mother and sister proved they're not Olivia's family when they chose to abuse her instead of love her. Olivia and I have built our own family now. We have friends who love and support us, neighbors who check on us, and each other. We don't need people in our lives who think an 8-year-old deserves to be treated like a servant and then abandoned when she can't meet their impossible standards. Sometimes I wonder if I should have seen the signs earlier, should have protected Olivia better from the beginning. Dr. Williams assures me that I'm not responsible for my mother's actions, but the guilt still lingers. What I know for certain is that Olivia is safe now, and she knows without a doubt that she is loved, valued, and protected. She knows that her worth isn't determined by how much work she can do or how little trouble she causes. She knows that she deserves kindness, respect, and unconditional love. And if anyone ever tries to treat her otherwise again, they'll have to go through me first. The justice system worked, therapy helped, and time has healed many wounds. But the most important victory is that Olivia knows she matters, and she'll never again have to wonder if she deserves shelter, love, and protection. Because she does. Every child does. And anyone who thinks otherwise can learn that lesson the hard way, just like my mother and sister did.